Hello, this is Kiana
What's up, guys? This is Brandon.
with number 3 of Okay, so let's talk about.
It's our podcast. If you aren't ready for it, get ready, because today's episode may be a little bit funny.
Maybe.
I think pretty much we're gonna be talking about our favorite movie scenes. Mine are gonna be definitely. It's gonna be like how we do our the one where we had similar things. This one, I think we're gonna have different scenes because
Definitely going to be different, just because it's really going to be scenes that really stick out to me, and things that, like, no matter what, those are scenes that I can be like, oh my gosh, like, this is why this is a great movie, and this is just great filmmaking.
And then there's me, I have the great filmmaking movies and the scenes from those, and the ones that I just happen to love from movies. This nostalgic movies, especially movies I know that Kiana either hasn't watched, won't watch, or doesn't like.
Also, just a warning, if you hear any pacifier sounds in the background, Jax would not leave his mommy's lap today. So he's pretty much out cold right now, but you might hear pacifier noises.
Yeah, you might hear him wake up once or twice.
But, okay, so let's talk about our favorite movie scenes.
Alright, you want to go first or you want me to go first?
I think I went first last time, so I'm going to let you go first.
Alright, so recently we've been watching the Lord of the Rings movies, and we're on to the Hobbit movies now. But from the first Lord of the Rings, my favorite scene, and this was my first time watching Lord of the Rings. I know that's sacrilegious. A lot of people love Lord of the Rings, but when I grew up, I was never into the Middle Earth type vibe when it comes to movies. So, the "You Shall Not Pass" scene with Gandalf is one of my. I'm thinking that's one of my favorite movie scenes ever. Like, I will probably quote that for the rest of my life.
Well, I just love that you even put that on your list, since it's so new to you.
Yeah.
But I think that just shows how much of, like, a big deal that it is.
For me, it shows how well that movie holds up. Because that movie came out in 2001. It was filmed probably like 1999, if not earlier. So, that movie holds up, and Ian McKellen does his job in that scene alone. And it, like, as a first time watcher, you're shocked. You're like, is that just into his character?
Yeah.
And sorry, spoilers for anybody else who hasn't seen it.
Yeah, this is totally going to be a
spoilerific
conversation.
Yeah.
Most of these movies, I'm like, I can't speak for you, but, like, at least for me, these movies are old. I mean, I'm not, and I think that's one of the things. These are not huge scenes as if, like, I'm telling you a plot twist. I mean, Brandon just kind of did.
Yeah.
But they're just big scenes where when you see the movie, you understand why this movie has acclaim or why this movie is a big deal.
Yeah.
So, just still watch the movie, and then watch the movie, come back, rewatch this, and then understand why we'll re-listen to this and understand why we said that these scenes are so monumental.
Yeah.
But I agree. Like, even you said that the "You Shall Not Pass," but for me, at the end when it says "Fly, you fools," and then just drops.
Oh yeah, very quick, very quick.
Is like amazing. Like, I remember seeing that movie for the first time when I was younger and being like, "Oh no, Gandalf is dead."
Yeah, thinking like you're not gonna ever see him again, and then, like, obviously in the later movies, like, he comes back.
Yeah,
and
better than ever.
Yeah, and then you're like shook. Pretty much.
But yeah, just the scene of him fighting, and then how it ended with, like I said, with him basically telling, like, "Fly, you fools," like, leave, go, is amazing. And not only his acting, but the acting of everybody who's just watching it happen. Yeah. And it's just seeing him leave.
Yeah, seeing him leave, and then the next one seeing what happened to him.
Yeah.
But that's one of the scenes that I love.
So for me, I already know you're gonna, like, love this, or I don't know, because Brandon and I kind of have a thing where he feels like all the movies I show him are just so sad.
Okay, so we can start it off by I'm pretty sure at least half her list or half of the movies that she came up with just to start is gonna be super depressing, super sad movies that make you cry. Because when we first started dating and on, anytime she wants to go, you have to watch this movie. And guess what? By the end of the movie, I'm crying. She's like sitting there like, I'm in love with this movie so much. Like, bruh, the movie's always sad every single time. At Blue Valentine, sad. What's another one?
Guess what my first one is?
Is it Blue Valentine?
Nope. It's Revolutionary Road.
Yeah, there you go. Another one. Sad.
So, the scene from Revolutionary Road that just sticks out so much to me there are actually two, but I actually chose the biggest fight scene.
You can say both.
Okay. So anyone who doesn't know, Revolutionary Road is Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet. It's set like, I want to say the 40s, maybe the 50s, and in the midst of planning to just leave, suburbia, the American dream, whatever, to go to Paris, Kate Winslet gets pregnant, and reality just hits her. They're about to have their third kid, and she's like, oh my gosh, we can't leave. We can't just go to Paris and all these things. And so it was just kind of stop of reality. So they end up getting into this argument, and for me personally, like the fact that Leonardo DiCaprio did not get an Oscar for this scene is outlandish. And I think I've shown it to you. Yeah, because you've seen the movie.
First off, for me, the fight scene is one of Leonardo DiCaprio's best scenes ever.
And one thing I can say is, like, as an adult who's obviously been in relationships, and even someone that's married or just a person, in one part where he screams at her that she is an empty shell of a woman. Yeah. Like, to say that to not only your wife but the mother of your kids is like, this is some of the best damn acting I've ever seen.
He knows how to control a scene, control a movie in general, but like specific scenes, he knows how to control it. Like, even just simple, like, just a random scene just to go off cuff or whatever, and what's it called, the Hollywood movie, the newest one that he was in.
Oh, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Even though it's not an amazing movie, but that's a whole other podcast.
He was great.
Yeah, he has a scene where he's just amazing, and it's just him, like, it's just amazing. Like, he's just yelling at himself in his trailer, about how bad he is and how much he sucks.
And I don't even want to just say him. The scene is also special because Kate Winslet is so amazing, and they have so much chemistry together. So just seeing the whole movie with them just kind of like having this talk of like, I want to go do this, I want to go live this life in Paris, not really do the suburbia thing, not really do the American dream thing, and them having this fight and kind of figuring out that they don't really love each other as much as they thought that they did. I think it was just like one of those things that it's a really great moment.
Yeah, that's a really good one, because I remember, like, I can remember the fight scene itself very vividly. Like, I remember watching it, and it almost holding up, like that scene reminds me of the newer movie, A Marriage Story, where they have their divorce scene.
Oh, their fight scene.
Yeah, the big fight scene, where they go in back and forth at each other, and it's almost very similar. So it's like, you see that in a lot of movies, and I think that one's a very early movie on where you kind of, I feel like earlier movies really didn't have that, couples really yelling and saying really disgusting stuff to each other.
Yeah, they don't want to have the real life of couples who do argue like that, do have those kind of arguments where they hit below the belt, but those, to me, are some of the most interesting, like, for me personally, the like unraveling of a relationship, unraveling of a marriage is like immensely interesting. Yeah. Because to know why someone chose to end the situation for how many other years they've been together is interesting.
And then as a viewer, you get to see the inner thoughts of the character, both characters. You get to see kind of both sides of what they're thinking, what they're going through internally, and then seeing it on the screen, it's like, oh wow, it feels so realistic. It feels so like you're in the room.
What's your next one?
Okay, so my next one is I'm gonna change up the tide a bit, which is sad stuff. Make it a little bit more intense. We talked about Leonardo DiCaprio. It's from Django Unchained. Now, Django Unchained being one of my favorite movies ever, being one of my favorite Tarantino movies ever. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you guys all know the scene of Leonardo DiCaprio, the dinner scene with Kerry Washington, him cutting his hand, and just keep rolling with the scene. Like, if you guys don't know the behind the scenes, so in the scene, he's yelling about having the best slave and the perfect one, and saying that he already has the perfect one, which is Django's wife, and that he wants a certain amount of money for her. But Django and I can't remember the other guy's name.
I can't remember. I love that movie, but I've only
Waltz,
seen it like
something
3
Waltz.
times.
Yeah, I can't remember his name.
Christopher Waltz?
Christoph Waltz. Something like
maybe.
that. There you go. He doesn't want to pay the $12,000 or whatever to give him to give his wife back. So they're arguing or whatever, and Leonardo DiCaprio is going off, and like you see it in him where he just kind of cracks, and he just goes into like full on like this is how I am mode, you know what I'm saying? And he pulls out this like there's like a lobster hammer, a crab hammer, or something like that, and for some reason he cuts himself. I forgot what he cut himself on.
I think
behind
he
the
broke
scenes.
a glass.
Yeah, he broke a glass or something, and
in
I guess
the middle of the scene.
In the middle of the scene, and he just keeps going, and not only does he keep going, but everyone around him keeps going
as he rubs blood on Kerry Washington's face. And
he grabs Kerry Washington's face with his bloody hand, and Kerry Washington, although looking very terrified, it probably was very real, keeps going with the scene. They still use the same scene. You know what I'm saying? They don't change anything. They don't, they keep going with the scene, and it's amazing. It's high-key terrifying that like he had the ability to just turn off like his real life emotions and just continue with his method acting of like, all right, I'm bleeding, whatever, just keep going. Like, this is my job. This is what I do. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's one of those scenes that it's very memorable for me. I don't know about for you, but like it's one of those scenes that I'm like Leonardo DiCaprio should have gotten some type of like award. I don't think he did, but some type of award for that.
I think don't quote me anyone, but I think there was probably like some other smaller awards, but I obviously no.
But like really big awards, like for that role he was amazing in that.
Another scene that really sticks out for me is the Idris Elba scene in American Gangster. Which American Gangster is such an amazing movie.
That's a great film.
Yeah. It's like not only is it based on a true story, and it's obviously you don't want to glorify situations like this, but just the scene in and of itself where Denzel Washington, who's George Lucas in the movie, he basically had just set up his business. They were selling drugs, had brought his family into it. They're in the diner having their, I'm assuming, I'm thinking it was like a weekly meeting, and he gives his speech about you're somebody or you're nobody. And in the middle of the speech, Idris Elba, who I believe the name was Tango, was walking up the street, and he owes him 20% of whatever the transaction was. So Denzel empties out the sugar can, walks outside, and he tells him, he's like, hey, you owe me my money, where's my 20%? And Idris Elba was like, he laughed it off, kind of made it like, oh, whatever. He's like, what are you gonna, or no triggering words here, but are you gonna do this in the middle of the street?
Yeah. And
Denzel puts his, aims at him right up to his forehead. And then he asks him again. He's like, hey, where's my money? And then he's just like, you're not going to do this. And he fires. Middle of the street, broad daylight, I'm assuming early in the morning. And then he bends down, puts the sugar can right next to his head, puts his bit of money in that he would have, had to pay him, and walked away. Like nothing happened.
Wow. So yeah, that scene is insane. I was not expecting that scene to be as crazy. I had never read on like the actual dude originally.
Oh.
Before I watched the movie.
Yeah.
So when I watched the movie, it had me shook.
George Lucas.
Yes, that's his name. There you go. I didn't want to say George Lucas and then be like, that's not.
I want to say that. Or is it Frank?
Frank Lucas.
Frank Lucas.
There you go. Not George Lucas. Not Star Wars.
Not Star Wars. So sorry.
Yeah, I was so shook, like, watching that, and he just shot him in plain daylight and just walked back to the diner like it was nothing.
Yeah.
And everybody just looked at him like,
I think that's when
wow.
Also, like, his family kind of realized that this is real.
Yeah.
This is not a game anymore.
Yeah, so, like, Denzel stole that scene, and Idris Elba killed that scene. You know, that was, like, kind of for me when I first found Idris Elba, like, when I first really knew who he was. So it was, like, you know, he had earlier movies, but, like, I kind of, like, you know, knew who he was in it. And, like, yeah, he stole that scene, too. Just kind of being, like, a one-off scene, a couple scenes that he was in it, you know?
Yeah. But it was just so, that one moment when you think of that movie, like, that's a great movie. It's on the longer side for the time. Now movies are always kind of that long. But it was one of those moments where when I think of that movie, it pops up in my mind. Or even when I just think of, like, some of my favorite gangster movies, which is, like, obviously something we will talk about in the future. But that is one of them because that scene is just so, it just catches you off guard.
Yeah.
So what about you?
All right, so my next scene that I just love so much is the Last Jedi scene. The Last Jedi scene that everybody talks about. The throne room scene.
Oh, man. That scene is...
People might not like the movie. We, on the other hand, feel differently about it. Like, we really do like that movie. That was really good. But that's not what we're talking about. Yeah. We're talking about that scene in general. Most people love that scene. I remember being in the movie theater with my brother and seeing that scene and just being like, did they really just, like, have two Jedi? She's a Jedi and him being a Sith fight together.
Wait, you said you saw it with your brother. You saw it with me the day before we got married.
You're right. Sorry. I'm mixing up the sixth one or like, seventh one or whatever movie that is. Which one is that? 7. Yeah. I'm mixing up that one. I saw that one with my brother. Yeah, I saw that one. I'm sorry, I did not forget that we saw that.
It was literally like our bachelorette party.
I mix them all up. It's all in my head together. But yeah, no. With seeing that and being shook, like literally being like, wow, like, bruh, like they really just did this. You know what I'm saying? Snoke dying, which was
who you thought was gonna be like the biggest of the biggest.
Thought he was gonna be the main bad guy. Yeah. Thought he was gonna like straight up, you know, take over everything. Cause that's what it seemed like. That's what was gonna happen.
It's an even bigger deal because at the time we didn't know who Rey was.
Yeah, we didn't know who Rey was, her lineage. We didn't know that. We kind of got hints that Kylo could turn good, you know, stuff like that. But like
having them work together in that moment.
Yeah, having them work together in that moment. Like everything that went on throughout that movie, and then like. Maybe like at that moment thinking maybe she might join him and go on and do whatever they wanted to do, you know. But obviously that didn't happen. Other things happened, you know. But like that scene that's one of the best Star Wars fight scenes.
It's so well choreographed.
Yeah, it's amazingly choreographed.
The aesthetic is
just the one scene of Kylo putting the lightsaber behind his shoulder and just turning it on and killing the guard right behind it. Amazing. The colors in it.
Yep.
Just kind of like made everything pop. You know, brought your attention to the scene. It's one of the most memorable scenes in Last Jedi and in the last trilogy in general.
Even if you don't love the movie for whatever reason, you have to appreciate that scene. Yeah. Because that scene is kind of encapsulates the whole movie. Yeah. So I think I agree on that one. Yeah. It's definitely a stick out of a scene.
So what about yours?
So my next, probably last one, is a twofer. So I watch Eat, Pray, Love at least.
Jesus Christ.
I watch it at least once a year. Not only, like...
No, she definitely watches it once a year.
The love story aspect of it is great, whatever, but for me personally, it's more so, like, her finding herself, her really trying to figure out who she is as a person, and with her being someone who is so dependent on partnership and relationship. So for me, I really do watch that movie because it's also just, religion and things like that, things that I feel like I take different parts from the movie every time I watch it.
Yeah.
But the reason it's a twofer is because early in the movie, she's married and they are going through divorce proceedings. She's a writer, so she has a good amount of money. Her husband is more so like, I want to do this, I want to do that. And during their proceedings, you're not really supposed to talk usually during those things. Usually it's like the lawyers. So after dragging this out longer and longer and longer, they finally get to this point, and she says to him, like, the lawyer is saying, like, oh, you want to do this, and she paid for you to do it. You want to do that, you want to do this, and da-da-da. So eventually, she blurts out, because he's going back and forth with the lawyer, and she blurts out, like, I just want you to pick a dream. Pick one thing. And then he's like, I choose you. And for me, it was just, like, so sad to think about. One person was totally out of the relationship, one person was still in it. Mm-hmm. And for me, it was, like, really sad to see that eventually it all boiled down to he didn't really have anything he wanted to do. He just wanted to live his life with her.
Yeah.
But, it's easy to think of, like, oh my gosh, like, that was so romantic. Like, you guys shouldn't get a divorce. But when you know deep down that she didn't know who she was without being with someone, which is kind of like one of the saddest things for especially a woman, to be in that position, that she doesn't know who she is outside of a person.
I think that's very like spot on and realistic when it comes to relationships in general. Mm-hmm. When it comes to a lot of people that they don't know who they are outside of their relationship. Mm-hmm. Their relationship kind of makes them. So it's kind of like that's a good scene to choose from.
Yeah.
One of them.
So the second half of it, which I think for me like kind of brings it all together, and the reason why these scenes independently they're great, but together it makes it even more special, is for anyone who hasn't seen the movie, she travels throughout several countries just trying to find herself, trying to find God, things like that, and she ends up in a I forgot what country it was, but off the top of my head, but she ends up in like one of those things where you're not supposed to talk and you're supposed to just kind of be one with God in those moments. But she meets this other guy who calls her groceries because she eats so much, and he tells her, because he's like, why are you so sad? All the time you're so sad. You're in the one place where you can be closest to God, and you're worried about a man. Because she was just thinking about her husband and how much she missed him, because at this point she had been without men for a good while. And she tells him that she's like, I just miss him. And then he tells her, like, that's fine, miss him, send him some light and love every once in a while, and let it go. And for me at the time, I'm like, wow, that it goes beyond even just a relationship for me. It's like a friendship or anything where that person isn't necessarily who you need in your life. That person shouldn't be your focus, but it doesn't mean you hate that person. It doesn't mean you don't have love for that person. But you can send them light, love, tell the universe, God, whatever you believe, how much you appreciate that person being in your life, and you let it go.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean just because you love them that they're supposed to be in your own little universe.
Yeah, it's not just supposed to be that situation with you guys together all the time,
So for me, I think those scenes together, they both really stick out for me, because that is really like it's a true lesson. Yeah. Like I said, especially for women. Men go through this too, but I think especially for women who do struggle with being in love with a person and not being able to exist without a person, which is not really a healthy thing.
Nah, it's definitely not healthy. It happens very often, though. Very often.
We romanticize things like that.
You fall into it and you don't know how to get yourself out of it. And then when your relationship ends and things happen, you don't know yourself. So, like, I think a lot of movies tend to show that side of a relationship. That codependency is okay. Yeah.
So I appreciate it in that moment, seeing a movie where, he said, like, okay, right now you're on a quest to find yourself, you're on a quest to find God. And I think in those moments, it's like, okay, you do, like I say, it can be even a friendship. I can be friends with somebody, and I've been friends with people who I know I shouldn't necessarily, we can't be codependent, we can't always be together. So it's like, you had to step away from those friendships the same way you had to step away from a relationship, and just be grateful for the relationship, be grateful for the friendship, and just let it go.
Yeah, I agree. So, switching up again. I keep switching it up on you, bringing all these sad movies and other stuff. My next scene is the Avengers Endgame scene. So, I think you should because there's so many different Marvel movies, so many different scenes from Marvel movies. I think after mine, I think you should give me one of your favorite Marvel scenes.
Okay.
But for mine, it's the Avengers Assemble scene in Endgame. There's so many good scenes in Endgame. But that specific scene, as a comic book nerd, as a person who's watched damn near every cartoon, and read every comic, played every video game, watched every Marvel movie multiple times, that is the best scene to me in the MCU. That is the epitome of what I feel like a comic book scene, like a comic book movie scene should be. Like, you get every single MCU comic book hero coming through Doctor Strange's portals all at once, standing together to fight this one villain. This one group of villains together, save the world, save the universe. It
culminates just like a whole 10 years.
It culminates 10 years of film, 10 years of like actors coming together to make something, it's never happened before, Everybody being on point, the acting being amazing, like Chris Evans in that scene, knowing this is his last movie he's gonna be in. Robert Downey Jr. knowing that this is his last movie he's gonna be in, from what we know. Like, you just seeing like, all right, not only is you're seeing the old guard being there, but you're seeing all of the newer, like Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, Black Panther, Falcon, like all of these characters, and they're gonna lead the charge next. The next time this happens, they're the ones that are gonna lead the charge, Right. And like seeing Thanos' face, Josh Brolin being amazing, and you seeing him like really emote, like, oh wow, like I might lose this right now.
Right.
Before this, you thinking like you can see his face. He thinks he's gonna win. Like he has this in the bag, and then you seeing a glimmer of like, oh wow, like they really have like numbers right now,
Yeah.
But still being cocky, like seeing like I got this, So like and then you seeing the hope and capsize. I mean, like.
Well, I think it's just also really special because obviously anybody who's like into comic books or anybody who really kind of like, there's no way all these people are gonna die and never come back.
Yeah.
I think even despite that, it was still special.
Yeah.
Because it's like, you knew as an adult, most kids probably just whatever. But as an adult who's read comics or like how you let me know like certain things are gonna happen, it was still like a wow, inspiring moment.
Yeah, I remember the last 45 minutes. I remember counting it down the second time we went to see it to see when the crying starts, and that is one of those moments where I had tears in my eyes even on the second time seeing it, because I was just like, I can't, as a comic book lover, I can't believe they actually did this. Like, I've watched so many movies and been like, all right, yeah, cool, but like this was something like they did this for me, like. Kid, like if I could talk back to 5-year-old Brandon going to go see Spider-Man 1 with Tobey Maguire and being like, me being shook seeing that. Imagine me showing my 5-year-old self this movie and being like, this isn't real. This is like propaganda. He made this up. You're not from the future.
So for me, a Marvel scene that I will always love is from that same movie. So it was amazing to see them all come out, but like as a woman and as somebody who loved Iron Man 3, when Pepper went to go help fight.
Oh yeah.
So then seeing the women come out during the fight, and they're all working together.
And
Pepper's
you know what's so funny?
Suit.
There were so many white male men that came out saying they hated that scene, and me watching it, I was so like this is comic book. Like, this is something. Oh yeah, and for me, I wish they made a whole movie using them. I feel like that would be an amazing movie. Find a great villain with those actresses and make a movie about them saving. It doesn't even have to be the world. Just like, be small, everyday crime. Yeah, just something that's going on, and I feel like they took that opportunity and actually made it like this. It could have been cheesy. It could have been super corny, and it worked.
Really, in the grand scheme of things, like, they were such an influential part of the story, even though that scene is so short. Yeah. Where they were helping Peter get where he needed to go. Yeah. You know, helping the glove get to where it needed to go. So, I think it was like one of those ones where I'm like, okay, the women are super influential in this moment. Yeah. You know, and I was like, and like I said, as a person who loved Iron Man 3 in the moment when Pepper put on the suit and pretty much saved the day. Yeah. You know, even though people hate that movie or whatever, like, she did help save the day in that movie. Yeah. So I love that moment of like, oh, the women are just coming together and they're like, oh, we got it.
But that's not even just that. It's even more of like, imagine like a little girl seeing that. How people like used to try to portray that, like, girls don't like comic books, girls don't like nerd stuff, all that stuff. It's like, no, like, imagine a little girl, imagine you as a little girl seeing that. Yeah. And being like, wow, like, all of these women came and saved a man, you know, they seeing the little boy, like, you know what I'm saying, like, saved the day, really, because if they didn't get that gauntlet where it needed to be, right, you know, Thanos would have won, you know, so, like, coming through and saving the day, that's amazing, like, right. Like, amazing,
Valkyrie, yeah, Pepper, and, you know, it was just really great for me personally. Yeah. That moment, like I said, for me it could have been longer, you know, but I understand why it was it was in the middle of a battle, whatever. But just that moment was it's like a shining moment for me.
Yeah, that's a great scene. Even that, just out of all of the MCU, that is a great scene to choose from. For myself, switching it up from Marvel, one of my favorite movies, if not my favorite movie, this scene comes from Pulp Fiction. Now, you know I love this movie. I've watched it just like you watch Eat, Pray, Love. I watch Pulp Fiction, or at least scenes from it, once a year. The scene where Samuel L. Jackson goes into the college students' apartment, I guess you could say, with John Travolta. They talk. They're looking for this briefcase, pretty much. These kids are saying they don't know where the briefcase is, and just keep saying what to him. Shoots him in the shoulder. Continues to ask him, sorry for my cursing, I'll bleep it out. Asks him, does Marcellus Wallace look like a bitch? One of my favorite scenes ever, because not only does he ask it once, he asks it again and again until he stops saying what and answers his question. And after answering his question, he continues to lead by saying Ezekiel 25:17. I want to make sure I got that one right. I think it's 25:17. Saying and reading that whole verse out to him, and then at the end of saying that verse, saying like, I only say this to people because I know after this I'm gonna kill them. You know, at the end of the day, no matter, like, this is one of my favorite scenes. I'm going to get that verse like somewhere tatted on me. It's how much I love that scene. I watch it so much because it's so great. Samuel L. Jackson's acting in that. You kind of, like, if you're in the chair being that guy, you're terrified because you're like, this man has remembered this whole Bible verse just to kill a person. He says this to every single person that he kills. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Well, and even the way that, like, even the way Samuel L. Jackson delivers those lines, it's scary. Yeah. You know, imagine yourself in the seat. You know, some just college kids just being dumb. Yeah. So I just couldn't imagine in that moment, like, oh God, this is happening.
Or even like how they come in and shoot the guy on the couch, right? The other guy, the black guy's in Marvin. He's in the corner or whatever. Or he hasn't even came out of the bathroom yet. And then you have John Travolta. He's in the kitchen, trying to find, in the midst of him doing this, trying to find the briefcase. Finds the briefcase, and then they do this because the guy doesn't want to answer his question. Keeps saying what? He's so afraid. But before then, he comes in trying to be all cocky and stuff like that. And Samuel Jackson just sends him down and is like, no, like, I'm going to show you what's really real. And now you have to pay for stealing from us. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like, and before this scene, you see him and John Travolta joking about so many different things.
Royale with cheese.
A Royale with cheese. What's the other one? Is it about feet?
I think so.
Yeah. Them joking about feet, which is a whole other conversation when it comes to Quentin Tarantino movies. Like, them joking about feet, it's they come in and they're super serious. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And that scene is just, like, iconic in my mind.
Right.
You know?
So, for my last one to wrap it up is the wedding scene from Sex and the City.
Ooh.
We
had this conversation the other day.
Well, what wedding scene are you talking about?
I'm talking about the breakup scene.
The breakup. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Okay. So, pretty much, you know, for anyone who hasn't seen it, Big and Carrie, they're getting together. They move into this really, really nice penthouse that Carrie is a little bit worried because Miranda kind of put in her head, like, oh, so you're going to help pay this mortgage or whatever. And anyone who watches the show, even though Carrie is, you know, decked out in designer, she doesn't make that much money.
Yeah.
So pretty much she's having this conversation with Big, and she's like, well, what will we do? Like, how do we make sure this is mine too? And then even though he's been married a few times and said he never wanted to get married again, he says, well, why don't we get married? And so as it goes on, the wedding is supposed to be this small little thing, you know, just like a quick court thing, and Carrie being Carrie and getting this, I want to say it was Vera Wang dress. Mm-hmm. The wedding ends up being huge in this public library, and it's like a huge thing. So with everything going on in the midst of getting ready, and Big is just getting cold feet, a lot of people are saying a lot of things, he doesn't go. And there was a moment where he was outside of the library, and he's like, just let me see your face, let me know this is just me and you, it's not like it's not a spectacle. And in that same moment, they put the veil on her, so he didn't get to see her face, and he just like, I just have to go. He just gets cold feet, he leaves. But the most important part is the scene where everyone's like, well, where's Big? And she's in there, she has her little flip phone out because she doesn't like newer technology, whatever. And he answers the phone, and he's like, I'm not coming. And next thing you know, just the phone just drops. And it's just like... slow-mo drop. It's the saddest thing I've ever seen in my life.
And it's so funny because whenever I always argue her that Big is like the better quote-unquote boyfriend or whatever that she dates throughout the series, she always argues about the scene about how he just left her at the altar, which I agree is horrible. But
and I love him still. Like, Big is still like my guy. But yeah. Just the moment of her being all dressed up and, you know, people, like, I think there were almost 1,000 people. Yeah. Being there, that is the most...
It's one of the worst things that he could have done.
Yeah.
And just as like, you're as a fiance waiting for your other fiance to come and meet you at the altar and be there.
After being together over 10 years.
Yeah, being together 10 years, on and off, you know, all their problems and everything else they had going on, and then finally saying, I'm going to marry you, and then he doesn't show up. Yeah. You know, it
was just great acting.
Yeah,
from Sarah Jessica Parker.
Amazing acting from her. Not only from her, but from the co-stars, all the women that like.
How Miranda was literally me, like just get her out of there, and then then I saw myself in Samantha, where we just have to handle this.
Yeah,
just get these people out.
Everybody just handling the situation. Yeah. Her like, and then even then, like, doesn't he show up? Or something like that.
Well, they end up, which is like the second half of the scene, which is why I love it so much, where after they just get them out of there, they're all in the car, and he sees her car, because he, midway through leaving, he's like, what the F am I doing? And he wants to turn around, but they're on a one-way street. So it was just kind of like a moment where they missed each other, where it could have he probably just shouldn't have said, I'm not coming. He probably should have said, I just need a moment.
Yeah.
But they kind of met each other halfway, and Carrie gets out the car because she sees him. They pull over, and with her bouquet, she just is like, "I knew you were gonna do this to me." And she's just hitting him.
And all you see is the petals and the flowers just breaking off. Each one is, which in my mind is symbolic to like
every time they've broken up.
Yeah,
this was just really kind of the last straw for her. Yeah. She is like a celebrity, and it was just embarrassing. Yeah. So it was like she just kept saying, "I knew it."
And she definitely takes her rep and just how people know her very seriously compared to, Big is kind of like, hey, it is what it is,
Where everybody knows that he's just like a playboy.
He's very Batman-y. He's very Bruce Wayne-y, where he's like, oh, it is what it is. I don't care.
Right. And so at the end of that, it was just, at that point, I think he had just given up because he knew, he's like, I messed up. Yeah. The part is just, because the show is always about friendship. The love parts are always just, they're secondhand for them because their real soulmates are each other. Yeah. So it was just special because at the end you just see that Charlotte specifically is just like, no, let's just go. Yeah. And they just put Carrie back in the car and it's just over. But it's just
what did she say?
Sad.
She's like grabs her. She's like, no. But she's making like a super angry face. Very Karen. It's one of the faces that like just burned into my brain of how many times I've watched the movie.
It's very Karen-esque. Yeah. She's like, no. But it's true because like as like somebody like, I would do the same for my friend.
Oh,
like, absolutely.
There's been moments where I've seen Kiana make that same face for her friends in the most Karen way. Okay, so for me, since that is your last one, I did have extras, so I'm gonna say my extras real quick just because. But these are very well known African American movies, both of them. One of them is from Baby Boy. Oh, gosh. If you ever watched it. If you haven't watched it, it's with Tyrese. And, what's the other? It's Snoop Dogg, Ving Rhames, and, why are we forgetting her name?
Oh, Taraji P. Henson.
Yes, there we go. Taraji P. Henson. Pretty much about a couple who just like in Sex and the City, have broken up, get back together. They have a child together. It's about a man growing up. And finally taking care of his family. Yeah. And realizing that he has to grow up and can't be a baby anymore. And there's a scene in this movie where the girl's ex is in jail, which is Snoop Dogg. He's in jail, and Tyrese ends up picking up her phone and finding out that Snoop Dogg's calling. And so the second time he calls or whatever, he picks up the phone, says, what do you want? And Snoop Dogg goes on this rant about like I forget what is the name of the movie.
Jody
Joe. Same Jody Joe that don't want to take care of his family, don't want to take care of his kids. Like, is this one of those things?
As time has gone on, it is like funny. Yeah. But just if you really just watch the movie, like,
if you watch the movie like back in the day, it was a very serious movie. Like, there's serious tones in this movie.
And there are a lot of life lessons. Yeah. So I think as time went on, especially like as like two black kids, like, you've seen it on BET when they're like
multiple
dubbing the
times.
words.
Oh my god!
It's just one of those
dubbing the cursing over it.
But now it is funny.
Yeah.
But if you really kind of sit down and watch it as an adult, really kind of take all the memes out of it. Yeah. It is a very like, it's an influential movie, especially for Black America. But it's also just extremely insightful. Yeah. I would say like outside of obviously my uncle's movie South Central, like it's really influential, like that Menace to Society, showing
like a actual black couple who have problems, who figure out ways of solving problems, showing a black man trying to leave his mother's home and live a successful life and make something of himself and take care of his family. I think it's showing another scene from that movie is the Guns and Butter scene with Ving Rhames,
which is
it's one of the most influential scenes I've ever watched as a child, and watching it as an adult and like really actually understanding that scene better. Like, I don't know about you, like how did you feel about that scene?
Well, like I said, it's another thing where it's like funny, whatever, blah blah blah, but it is when you would think about it, because I've heard like rappers talk about this, and as time goes on, because it's like the same as if someone was to tell you like milk and meat, where you just kind of learn like these are things that through time they'll perish.
Yeah,
that's the butter, and then there are things through time that they gain money, they gain like they help you learn. So for example, you can say like people who buy real estate, those are the guns, those are things that last throughout time. They don't get old. They you make money off of this. Paintings, things like that. Then there's like the butter, there's chains, there's cars, things that depreciate in value. So for me it's like such a special scene, because it is kind of like, we won't dive into that, but there are things that like in Black America we struggle with buying certain things that depreciate, things that don't really matter as you get older and get wiser. And I think like if you take away the jokes and the memes of the situation,
the movie itself is just very influential in Black culture. And then another movie, which is a sillier movie that I quote very often, is a movie called Players Club. And I know it's like you said, like I said, it's has serious tones, but it's a more or less a meme movie. Very much memery going on in the movie. For me, it's just almost every scene. Like, it's just memorable for my childhood of me watching it when I wasn't supposed to.
Same.
Because that movie has a lot of sexual things that happen in that movie. A lot of
not for kids.
No, it's definitely not far from kids. But it is a movie that when you're old enough, and if you are old enough, you should watch. Laugh at, or take serious and take the tones from.
Life lessons.
It's a lot of life lessons. It's a whole rape scene in it that is like, as a kid, like, or being younger, seeing that, being like, wow, like what the
this happens.
This happens. This is real life. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a movie that has a lot of serious tones that is like, oh, okay, And and then like so that movie alone is just.
He's smiling.
So yeah, but that movie alone is just, I don't know. I'm very nostalgic when it comes to that movie. Kiana makes fun of me for quoting it. How much I quote it.
Don't let it make you.
It's my favorite quote. Make that money, don't let it make you. And I tell that to everybody, and everybody laughs at me when I say it, but it's very true. Don't let your money control.
Even in an office setting, it's true.
Yeah, don't let your money control your thoughts and how you feel about things and what moves you make. But yeah, that movie is just also very like influential in certain phrases.
Yeah.
You have every comedian in that movie. You have like major big like Black actors in that movie. Even if it is a silly movie, you have Ice Cube in that movie. You know what I'm saying?
Fox.
Yeah, people who are very big actors. So that's a movie that I will always say I love that movie, no matter how silly it is.
Well, I guess we'll say if we're throwing out like influential Black films.
Yeah.
Set It Off, obviously.
Oh my.
Queen Latifah's
Set It
death
Off.
scene is.
Set It Off. You have what Soul Food. Soul Food is another influential.
I think the best scene from that one is obviously when when Vanessa Williams' character finds out that her husband slept with her cousin.
It's like we were just talking about this the other day, saying how we need to watch that as adults.
I think we might today.
We should, because if we can find it. Because for some reason streaming services aren't supporting us. Our
art.
Our Black films that should be supported.
We'll get into that later.
Yeah. We should make that another podcast. We'll talk about that off air. Of our favorite like Black films.
Yeah.
You got Soul Food. You have Best Man.
One of my favorite movies.
Man. We can't go really into the depths of the scenes we like in that movie.
And the lessons.
Yeah. But yeah, there's a lot of Black movies have great scenes that are influential, nostalgic, that like really kind of like just are imprinted in my mind.
Yeah.
That I can probably quote with no problem.
So one thing I will say, tweet us, hit us up on Facebook, drop a comment, tell me your favorite scenes. Because now I'm curious from any movie.
Yeah, from any movie. But I do have my last scene. I have one last scene. Quickly. Predator gets to the chopper. You've never
decided to drop that in, right?
Just had to drop that in real quick. Jesus. It's an amazing scene, no matter if you like the movie or not, Kiana. I showed her that movie and she was kind of just like whatever about it.
It was boring.
It was not, but whatever. One of the best scenes, iconic scene. Definitely, most people know that scene and quote it pretty often. Mm-hmm. But yeah, those are the scenes that I found that I love.
Same here.
Yeah. Keanu, her sad movies.
Whatever.
Every sad movie. The only sad movie she didn't put in there was American Gangster.
Yeah.
Everything else. Sex and the City is not
a sad movie.
It's not a sad movie, but
yeah, those aren't sad movies.
But it's
those
very
like sad
dramatic.
Scene.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you you gave me a pretty good Avengers one. Mm-hmm. But yeah. So those are our scenes. You guys tell us in the comments, what are your favorite scenes?
Like, subscribe, all that stuff.
Yeah, all that good stuff. Get us where we need to be so we can make more of these.
Right, so we can make more.
We make more of these when Jackson's asleep.
Yeah, of course.
All right, guys.
All right, bye.
We'll see you guys on the next podcast. Bye.